Okay. Thanks so much, though, and Bode for your input. I really think you guys made pertinent points. I think it's really the mixture of, on the one hand, many of us African parents being uncomfortable to talk about certain topics with our kids, or just not actually just having this habit of sweeping things under the rug, even when you know that something is not quite right, but this fear of actually facing stuff head on. And a very important point Dorothy made about us really having to take time for our kids, like make time for our kids, no matter how busy our lives are. Yes, adulting is not easy. We are all busy, but it's really important to make time for our kids, even when we are tired, even if it's just 2 minutes, give that attention to the kid. Because as Dorothy said, she didn't even lift her eyes off her book. Maybe if she did, she would have seen some expression on her daughter's face, who would have, who could have, made her sense that this is more serious than she was getting on. So, yeah, I think those are two things we could take away from this to really, um, no matter how uncomfortable it is for us to have these discussions with our kids and also make time for our kids, no matter how busy, no matter the busy lives we live. Okay, so I'm gonna jump on to the next question. So next one goes: what would you, as a parent, have done if you found, or would you, as a parent, do if you find out your child is being sexually abused under your own roof?
Chai, that's a hard one.
Bayangi which kokomoto, bayangi which kokomo, no leuna.
That's a hard one. Honestly, the truth is, I don't know how I'm going to react. In situations like that, it's easy to say how you react when you hear it happen to someone else. But when it happens to you, I'm sure the first thing will be shock. The next thing, you start blaming yourself. It's just something that you react when it happens. You really can't say. You really can't say. I
Right,
personally don't know what I will do. I don't know.
right, right.
Let me
So,
let me
yeah,
let me share my experience with you guys. It has nothing to do with sexual abuse, but it has something to do with my son was being um bullied in school. He was called a nigger in school. He happens to be in a school where he was the only black kid in that school, and it was his first class. And for some reason, I'd never had to talk with my kids about being black or being white. Kids are quite color neutral, if you ask me. They don't know anything about being black or being white. At a certain point, they get conscious of their colorness, right? But okay, so let me fast forward because I don't want to waste your time. My son came back from school and was at home with my au pair. And when I came back from work, I could see from his face that there was something wrong. I played with him, but he was quite, everyone, Linda knows my son. He's quite, he's a jubilant, lively, almost kicking the ball all the time child. But that day he was playing, but there was some kind of reservation in him. And I asked him, like, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? He was like, Mama, I'm fine. The next day I came back from work and I said that he was totally reserved. And then my au pair girl at home was telling him, tell your mother, tell your mother. And then he came and he held my hand and then let go of my hand and held me around my waist. I could see that he visibly needed that comfort. So I hugged him and I took him upstairs to my room and I said, what is it? And then he blurted everything out. He had been on the field, on the break playground, and some boys were bullying him. They were calling him nigger. It happened 2 days ago. The second day it happened again. The third day which was the day he was telling me the guy had brought like six of his friends and they were calling him nigger. And I can tell you blood drained from my body. Like I could not even feel the ground I was walking on. It was like 8 o'clock and I started making calls. I just went into action. I cannot remember when I called the PTA, because we had a WhatsApp group. The PTA members in my class, I called them, and but I reassured him. My first thing was, I realized, okay, like Mbole said, blame game starts. I realized I'd not talked to him. I hadn't had any talk with him about being black, about being of African descent, about being in a school where there was predominantly white people and you're the only black person in the room. I started digging information on Amazon. I bought a Kindle book. I read it that night. In the morning, when he woke up, I had a talk with him, a swift talk, and I went to school. I dropped him off in his class, went directly to the direct school director's office. I stayed there until the school director came in, and I had a row with her. I was like furious. I was so furious. I was like, how can this be happening? Because there were two teachers at the break at the playground when this was happening, and the two teachers, they just told him, go to your class. I said, how could this happen? And so I actually, my primary concern was, make sure he is okay. Make sure this doesn't disrupt him in any way, and make sure this doesn't delve a lasting blow on his personality, on his own person. So those are the thing that was like my primary objective. And what happened as an aftermath, because I went to school and I confronted the teacher, they made the children come apologize to my son. What happened after that? My son was boosting with confidence. He was like you had given him another injection of life, boy. He was so happy, so relieved. I think one of the things that made him relieved was the fact that I listened to him. Two, I took his complaint serious. Three, there was something being done in school which was visible, which he felt, So I think no matter what kind of abuse, be it emotional abuse, verbal abuse, sexual abuse, no matter what kind of abuse a child goes through, the most important thing is, one, make sure you heed to this child, listen to this child, give the child an ear, give the child a podium to air their mind. Try to make sure you have, we are not all knowing. Read, go go through therapy. I love therapy. I know that which will come to the essence of this book, because most of the story unfolds during therapy sessions, right? I love therapies. I have grown to enjoy therapies. I've grown to think that those are things that would help us, even if it's just like little things like, oh, I feel lost in my plans for my life and things like that. Just talking to people is therapy, but actually talking to a therapist is something that we should learn to inculcate in as one of our healthy habits here, especially those of us who have the possibility of doing that. Okay, I don't overtalk. But give the child an ear. Make sure you give the child sees that something is being done. Something is being done to ensure that there is no there are no repercussions, negative repercussions on them. And thirdly, make sure in your own parents' right, make sure that you educate yourself so that you have all of the, you cannot have it all, but so you have some of the weapons you would need to help the child handle whatever nightmares or whatever things might haunt the child in the future. Sorry, I don't overtalk.
Thanks so much.
Okay.
Yes, I agree
Right.
that not taking action is the worst thing we can. I agree, not taking action is the worst thing we can do. I know many African parents, especially in that time, would have this tendency of wanting to sweep things under the carpet, and um, um, or not and saying like, oh, we don't want to wash dirty lightly and in public, or just bury our heads in the sand and pretend that didn't happen. I mean, that's really the worst thing. We should take some form of action, and not just sit and make and wish it to go all the way. So I personally don't know what I would have done, but it definitely wouldn't have been sweeping stuff under the carpet. That I know for sure.
Can I say something?
Someone else, yes.
Yes, boom. So two things, right? First things first is what will I do? Like Mbode said, I'm not sure, but I'm very sure somebody is going to die. I don't know who yet. It might be me, it might be somebody. But then again, there's this point where I had a bit of issue was when the girl's mother asked, "Did he rape you?" And she starts crying. I didn't see any follow up, like real follow up reaction. Like you want to follow up with other questions. I don't know if you want to calm down or take her somewhere and start asking real questions. That follow up was missing from me. So it kind of threw me into a place like, okay, so was this her mother? And the child, you have that question in your head to ask your child that, did he rape you? And then you don't follow up with any real, actions as a mother. I personally found that a bit appalling. I won't say I want to blame the mother, but that's a point where you have to stop and kind of start doing investigations. Now, one thing I realized is that I personally am one to cut people off very easily, but I would just recall a very short incident that I had in my house. I had a nanny, old lady in her 50s, who was stealing money. And when I realized, like, I confirmed that she had stolen money, I told my mom, like, okay, I'm letting her go. My mother was like, no, you have to do better investigation. So she trapped the lady with money. She put money in my daughter's dresses, and the lady, the woman was doing the laundry, and my mom sat there and watched her steal the money from my daughter's laundry. So she came to me and said, yeah, I've confirmed. Now you can fire her. That's how you go gangster. You just don't sit there and just talk. You have to come back, calm down, and actually see how far they can go because it's a small child. She may have just said, even if he said, did he rape you? She may have said yes. And then you start firing up and down without exactly knowing how long, what he actually did, how much damage he's done. So sometimes, even though it can be extremely hard, you can think bloody murder. It may be really hard, but I think it's that time where you have to sit down and do proper investigation. So if you want to kill somebody, you're killing them for the right, for the right thing, or you're doing the right thing by killing them. Because then again, I look at how much punishment will he get that can erase what he's done, and how much damage has he done, and what do you have to do to kind of help the lady. And I think one of the ladies talked about therapy. That I've asked this question several times, like, where are the therapists in Africa? Because I myself, I don't have any real problems, but I still believe that I need a therapy to sort of mirror my life to, like, when you want to bounce your life at somebody and see if the things you're feeling, the things you're telling yourself are actually correct. But is there something you can do better? But we're in a continent, we're in a country where I am. I've literally gone out searching for therapists and I've not found one. You understand? So how do we, go to therapy when we don't even have therapists? So that's another thing that we really need to look at. But my biggest issue was asking the question of, did he rape you and not following up me? I found that really weird.
Can I
Okay.
can I can I add something to what Ngum said?
Sure, please.
Please go ahead.
All right. I don't know, Linda. I don't know if you were coming to that later. This did he rape you question. Ngum.
Mm,
My problem with that question was totally different. I didn't even care about the follow up. My problem was, where did this question come from?
exactly.
Delphine, we'll come to
You know,
that. I know
are you
that's a
coming
big
to that
one.
later?
Yes, I mean it's definitely one of the, like, very
Oh, okay.
things that stand out
Okay.
in the book. So there's lots of things we need to understand from this question. So
Okay.
yeah, we'll come to that.
Okay.
So the next the next one I will go is, like, there was a scene in the book where it was KB's word against George. So the way it unfolded in the book, all the adults kind of, or most of them, like, subconsciously sided with George, the adult, right? So whenever there's this he said, she said situation between adult and child, we as tend to believe the adult. And I just want to hear from each and every one of you why this is so. Where does this stem from? Um, Do you guys have any opinions on this behavior or tendency?
Can I let me jump in here? Abe una
Okay.
talk Ivan and abe una talk like at this hour of a life for talk. Anyway, let me just say what I want to say. Growing up with my mother, everyone called her Margaret Thatcher. She was a woman who would put herself if you dared. I was the girl in the neighborhood who wore the shortest skirt, and it was frowned upon in the entire neighborhood, even in UB. Dare you come to my mother and complain about me? My mom was a person who would extract you from that discourse where people older people are talking and you have to justify yourself. She would extract you and put herself first in front of you and then fight it out with the people. And then when they are out of the picture, she would sit down with you and talk it out with you. I recall there was when I was in CPC, I wrote a love letter to my boyfriend, and it was caught. And the principal called my mother to school, and my mom came to school charging like a bull. Now, the principal had the letter. He read it in front of the disciplinary master, whoever. A whole council was called, and my mother came with her friend. God bless both of them, their souls. And my mom sat there, and she was like, first of all, I don't care if my child wrote a love letter. What I care is if there are grammatical errors in that letter. That's the first thing I care about. If there are grammatical errors, I would whip her because she's here to learn how to write better. Every other thing that you guys want to discuss about her writing a love letter, that is not your problem. That is my problem. And I can tell you that as long as my child has a healthy relationship with a guy who is somewhere out of the school, I am happy with it. And she actually removed me from that discussion, Mr. And so I can remember he was livid with anger. She actually removed me from that discussion. And then guess what? When they had finished reading the letter and doing whatever, my mom was like, she doesn't see any problem with it. There is nothing that I said in it which was wrong. It was just an expression. And she's quite relieved that I wrote very good English. And then when we left the principal's home, because we had having a meeting in the principal's home, my mom gave me two dirty slaps. Bam! Bam! I say for school now, American for no boy. Hey, I say for school. She gave, but right there in front of those adults, my mom was like my Arnold Schwarzenegger, defending me in all ways possible. What that showed me at some point was I also have to defend my children. I have to defend them. I have to be their voice. You know, no matter if they are, of course, I will not support my child if my child killed someone or I don't know raped someone, but I have to give them room to express themselves. And of course, their tiny voices cannot be heard in a place where there is a medley of authority, adults, and people who are even much older than you talking. Your voice as a small child will not be heard, you know. So that's just what I wanted to say, if at all I said anything.
Thanks, Dorothy. Yes, you said a lot. I mean, what I took out of it is that like give your child that um, feeling like that you're there to defend them. You're the parent. You're there to protect them, and that they can count on you. And that does not translate into like someone behavior, but being able to defend them, and then you can always um, make out the punishment at the right time. So, um, does anyone else have anything to
Can I?
say about this tendency of just, waiting and waiting for the child, save the child, and yeah, any more comments
Um,
on that?
yes, I'd like to say something.
Mm-hmm.
When, like me, for example, I grew up in that kind of household where there were so many people, and we're just like two children at home, two biological children, and every other person were adults. So it's kind of like sometimes some family, some the other people in the house, like the cousins and uncles and everybody, they feel like maybe they always feel like the parents are giving preferential treatment to the child. So anything that has to do with the child, they automatically are against the child's opinion or anything the child wants to say. So sometimes maybe that's one of the reasons why the family was just didn't want to listen to the child, because sometimes it has the other members of the family always believe that if any amount of love that the parents are showing for the child, they are not doing the same for the rest of the household. So yeah, sometimes that can be the cause of the automatic dismissal of of a child's complaint.
Thank you so much, Ivan. So, oops, my battery is getting there. I still have a couple of questions. So let's get to that moment of bravery, of absolute bravery, where KB, after enduring so much beatings and abuse, finally plucked up the courage once again um, to go to her mom and tell her that even after people had disbelieved her, they didn't believe her dad, her other adults in the house. But she went up to her mom and told her for a second time that Uncle George kept on beating them and hasn't stopped beating them. And I think I don't have the passage in front of me, but I think her mom saw like some scars on her child's body, and then she screamed and said something along the lines of, I think she called her dad immediately and screamed and said, "You killed me." And then coming to the point, she said, "Did he rape?" I think before me asking about rape, she asked some other question that KB didn't understand, and then she asked if George raped her, and the poor child didn't even know the meaning of rape, and she was like, "I don't know." Her mom was just getting hysterical. And what do you guys think about that? So
I
I
think
think Delphine, you were
that
going to
yeah,
say
that was
something.
actually at the end. The first time when she had the courage to go and tell her mom. This time when the mom asked about rape, I think it was when she told her brother. That's when her brother intervened.
Yes.
Right. So first, the first part when she told her mom, when her mom got agitated and was, and called her dad. Actually, that was a kind of reaction I expected from her mom. But then when the dad came and the whole story turned around and everybody started blaming her, I was very disappointed in the mother, because she saw those marks on her body. But then
True.
now coming to the end, when the brother intervened and then everything finally came out. But the brother intervened in the fact that he was beating them, not even about the rape. Because
Right.
then the rape had not come out. And then the
Yeah.
mother came out with, "Did he rape you?" And I'm like, where is this coming from? She never mentioned rape. It was all about beatings. So it made me very uncomfortable to think that this mother, deep inside her, she suspected something like that was going on because it just came from nowhere. And I think the mother knew, but it was something maybe too painful that she didn't want to confront. Like you said, she swept it under the rug. She didn't want to face it. When this girl talked to her the time about the menses, the time, I am sure she knew. She knew it, but she didn't want to confront it. And that's why she asked that question at the end, because she couldn't hide from it anymore, you know. And unfortunately, we don't know what came out of that question, But
Th- Thank you. Thank you
yeah.
so much, Stephen. I think you've said a lot of pertinent points. like as you mentioned, the child came and she mentioned about beating. She said nothing about rape. And for the mom to ask that question, we need to ask ourselves, why did she ask that question? Which means she must have been suspecting all along. But because the thought of it was probably too painful to contemplate, she was in absolute denial, I would say. And it's unfortunate. I think Brown, to another question, she was saying like we didn't really get the follow up to that. So I honestly don't also know what to think about it, but I'm
Um,
open to hear what anyone else has to say.